All right, so welcome everybody. Really excited for this opportunity to have a conversation about the future of access control and what we're calling smart access. We've got only a half hour, so I'm not going to take up a lot of time, but we'll do quick intros around the room, and then we'll jump in. But my name is Odess, CEO of Inside Access Control and Inside Visitor Management. We are a platform for people to talk about the access control marketplace and the visitor management marketplace as well. So why don't we go real quick? We'll do the intros of everybody else in this. Brigitte, you want to go ahead and start?
Sure. Brigitte Daniel Corbin, Executive Vice President of Wilco Electronic Systems. We are an integrator of security surveillance, access control, IoT, everything Proptech out of Philadelphia.
Wonderful. Amit, why don't you go?
Sure. Lee, thanks for hosting. Thanks, Chani, the team at Igloo Home, and everybody that I can't see who's watching. Thanks for your presence. My name is Amit Garg. I'm the co-founding and managing partner of Tau Ventures. We are a seed fund in Silicon Valley focused on applied AI, artificial intelligence, in 3 verticals: digital health, enterprise, and automation. Automation for us would include smart access control, drones, robots, etc. And I've been previously an investor at 2 other funds. I have invested in IoT and access control in those funds. And I built my own company also in digital health, though.
Great. And John, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, thanks, Lee. And again, thank you to everybody who's listening for taking the time out of your day. I've got the weirder background, so I'll just start by saying I've known Lee for a long time, back when I was a practicing architect and he was launching energy light control. So a while. Fast forward a bit, we got to work together at Brevo, where access control tech was our excuse to explore digital and physical systems coming together, looking at how they transform each other, and to imagine new experiences that might come from that. But today, I'm a design professor at Georgetown University, and my home there is a unit called Ethics Lab, which has been an amazing opportunity to research and teach with philosophers and lawyers and other experts on ways to use ethical analysis as a creative engine, jailbreaking ethics from the idea that it's just sort of the no police or about compliance, but instead seeing how practicing ethical analysis on an ordinary basis can be a major driver for innovative thinking. And I'll just note that we're part of the Kennedy Institute of Ethics, which played a leading role in the patients' rights movements back in the 70s that fundamentally reshaped our relationship with medical providers in America. And that context has a huge influence on how how we at Ethics Lab approach our projects on tech and society in particular. And I'll just note that we've been thinking a lot about the pandemic, about Cove Tech, and imagining what return to work, and especially what return to campus means. And we're also looking hard at the different experiences groups have with systems of security and control in America. So today feels like another day in this slow motion moment in history, and I'm very grateful to be a part of this conversation here.
Wonderful. So the purpose of this was to bring a different group of panels together than what is typical of, you would say, of the access control industry, to really spark a conversation. If you look at the access control industry, it was going through a phase change before, and it's just accelerated through the COVID side. We've been talking about how our industry was going mainstream as it was, just more from a convenience standpoint, but now, the safety convenience side got sort of T-boned by the health side of this, which has now triggered a real movement really around access control, which is good and bad, if you would. But speaking primarily to the good, I think we'll jump into that first question that we have here, which is, I'd love to know from each of you, what does smart access mean to you? And Amit, why don't you start it off with the first kickoff? What does it mean to you?
Sure. Well, I'll hearken from how I know you, Lee. We worked together on Unikey when you were CEO there, and I was one of the investors, right? And Unikey's value proposition was to be able to open and close doors, starting with residential, with the touch of a button, or not even with the touch of a button, by touching the handle, right? But I think smart access is far more than that. It's not just about homes. It's about everything in your life. Whether I'm in a factory and I'm managing a process and being able to access different parts of that factory at different times, or whether I'm hosting an Airbnb house and being able to let in the right kind of people at the right time, perhaps not needing physical keys. I mean, physical keys are are a 2,000-year-old technology. Seriously, we should have evolved far beyond that. And what gets me really interested about smart access is the data that you can collect from it. That's especially interesting for corporates, for enterprise in general. So many office spaces, they could provide better security, and they could also understand better even how to turn on and off lights, right? If I understand how somebody entered a building, when they're entering, what are the patterns of usage of different spaces within a building, we can optimize that. So I see smart access control as being a foundation for us to how to even organize how we work in the office, how we live in homes, and how we commute. It can help us essentially create a more efficient society. And I look at Singapore often as the prime example of a smart city and what they're doing. In many ways, East Asia has taken the lead in access control. But anyways, let me pass it over to Brigitte and Jonathan for their views too.
Yeah, Brigitte, please. What's your view
Sure.
of what smart access?
Sure. So let me start a little bit by explaining a little bit about Wilco, because we're coming at this as an integrator, right? So as the integrator, we are the connector. We're like the boots on the ground for connecting the hardware to the software. We provide low voltage wiring. We provide professional services, even around how real estate partners adopt technology and embrace innovation. But we are essentially an integration in the middle of how these things all connect. But we didn't start that way. Like, our beginning was in the cable market. My family, African-American owned company, we were one of the first cable providers to bring cable television to multifamily residential buildings in the 70s and 80s, when that was the new technology coming into Center City of Philadelphia and throughout the region. And for us, being that wirer of that type of Proptech, because that was the Proptech back in the 70s. It was like wiring of security and wiring of cable. That was how buildings began attractive and attract tenants. So that was our beginning, our rudimental, fundamental beginning. Part of that was also being provider of cable to public housing and in low-income communities in Philadelphia, which allowed us to have a very great personal touch, a very good understanding of getting into community and getting them to understand technology, because we're African-American company providing to those communities that we are a part of, has also been our underlining legacy. So that was one side of the house, right? Low income, minority community cable television early, when no one else wanted to do it. We were, that first company that did it. And then the other side of the house was these high-end, Class A, commercial, multifamily, sleek Center City apartments that just wanted this new technology called cable. So I want to start there, because if you unpack that, that's my definition of what smart access is. One, I think what it is today, it definitely revolves around like the people and the assets and the data, and that connecting all those pieces together, because we're an integrator. And I think we're actually one of the only integrators even in this conference. Like, we are the people that connect the Igloo homes into the unit at 6A Jefferson Street, right? We are the ones that go into the community. So it's the hardware, smart access is the software, it's the data analytics that we hope are used for good, for efficiency and family, planning and health and telemedicine, and not just to track for adverse reasons. We think, or I think, smart access should be secure. It should be intuitive. It should be easy to access. It should be even affordable. And it should be inclusive, right? It should be inclusive by who buys it, who makes it, and definitely who's going into your home to integrate it, or your building to integrate it. And so I guess, it's in essence, it's holistic. It's the ecosystem. It's really the connecting of the pieces, the people, the products, the hardware, and intimately connecting them. That makes it smart, and that makes it just what we all think of when we're trying to drive the marketplace. It has to be founded in community and people to get it really churning and to get it really understood and to get it trusted by everyone that we want to start using this technology to help empower their lives.
Love it. Thank you. And Jonathan, what about you? What does smart access mean to you?
Yeah, everything Amit and Bridget are saying sounds really right to me, especially the extensibility and the social ecosystems playing a huge role. So I'll just say, I think what's really important is also maybe the most obvious, and that when we discuss smart access today, the access part of the equation remains as unchanged as ever, that we're still talking about products that provide a type of control to the management of physical spaces and assets, right? They are systems of control. And at its core, we're referring to a system of control that determines compatibility. And so it used to be just simply whether a key or a card or a code is compatible, whether it could complete a circuit, and sort of a binary, sort of non-nuanced response. And that remains still the core, I see, the kind of operating paradigm of smart access or property technology systems in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The smart part, I'll just add, is that one part to underscore is that the systems now would treat the relationship a person has to the system as the critical piece of measuring that compatibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it really refers to our bodies or our phones as proxies for our bodies, for example. So when we use capacitive touch, biometrics, facial recognition, gait analysis, proximity, geofencing, we're adding bodies and the experience, the lived experience that people physically have as a critical like module, object, piece of measuring compatibility with an environment. And I think that's the sort of dominant paradigm in the design and development and sort of outreach that these types of technology products have.
Yeah, which is, and I love all three of those descriptions, because it's really gone beyond just the security, the binary that you talked about, John. And, it's as it's gone digital from the analog side, right? It's now created a much different experience. And I think in the importance of what it actually does versus just keeping bad people out. There's now far more stakeholders and a lot more that goes into it. That is exciting, and it is creating now a need for more of a conversation around that, because it's not just about security, which leads me to the next question that I wanted to have the three of you discuss. Is we talked about how the health side of things is now sort of T-boned, the convenience and security side. And really, it was more about like the physical health before. Now, though, it's much greater than that. And actually, on the panel before this, one of the overhyped technology that someone used as an example was fever cameras that are currently happening right now, and this idea around security theater. And then instantly now, an industry that has been really about, again, keeping bad people out, is being forced to have a point of view when it comes to health. So my question to you all is, does the access control industry have permission to be in the health safety business like it has sort of thrusted itself into currently right now? What are your views on that? And Brigitte, I'll start with you on this one.
So I think at this point, we don't have any other option at this point to not be in it. I don't think it's a matter of we have permission. It kind of happened because it was accelerated by literally a health pandemic that is really looking at how we use space, right? It's looking at how we access buildings, because now the buildings and space that we were so freely entering and freely using them through mobile technology and key fobs, et cetera, we now can't really go to, right? We're all remotely working from home, or we're sheltering at home still, or we're not even able to touch each other. And all of that is now directed and facilitated through access control, right? So access control is flipped on its head in 2020. Now even employees are still visitors, and everyone now has to, look at occupancy. And those are things that probably were little like value adds when you're in the business of access control. If you're a dealer or your supplier or integrator, you just want to make sure you have a couple like quivers, just to kind of use. But now they're being used to really help buildings and help people and help spaces reopen. Like, we're literally all reopening the country, cities, counties. So a lot of it is new. A lot of it is definitely not totally figured out yet. But when I've met with clients, a lot of this is not, I wouldn't say it's feared or security. I mean, security theater. I don't really think we should say that, because I'm bullish on just having extra protectors extra protective layers, extra protective understanding of like who's coming in your building, and not to exclude because it's, you know, someone has a high temperature, elevated temperature, you know, you can't come in. It just allows it to be checked, or someone to be checked for further purposes, right? It's not, these devices aren't medical devices. I don't think that they're saying that they are. They're just extra pieces of mind for a pastor or a restaurateur or a theater opener. Like, we have to just look at these as that, because we're all scared too. Like, we're still figuring, like, 3 pandemics. So let's all be easy on people just trying to be safe, get people back to their spaces, and then just figure this all out, not blaming or putting aside or don't buy that, or just whatever you need, whatever people need to just make sure that we are part of it and you are opening up. I am very, at least, hopeful that access control is now providing those layers. So I don't think it's a permission. I think it's, we are helping the country and people become more comfortable and become more open to just being back to where we were, at least to be freely around each other.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. So, John, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is really the promise of smart access question, isn't it? And the idea of permission is great here. And I think the response from the service providers, it's admirable, but also a no-brainer, right? The return to work or return to school. The tech's already there, so asking how I can help is totally the right thing. I think, following up on what Brigitte said, I think efficacy, like, does it work, is a key point. But that kind of just, those questions sort of pile up to, I just get really surprised to not see in every advertisement and every press release announcements or new partnerships and collaborations between technology providers and public health authorities at any scale, right? Instead, I'm seeing a lot of silly, like, solutions in a box, and just the solutions vocabulary is just a really strange thing to throw into the conversation with something as complicated as what we're dealing with right now. And I don't know why that is exactly, why we're not seeing just an outpouring of public-private partnerships or partnering up with cooperating with experts. But I'm really optimistic about what could be gained by seeing if there is a seat at the table with public health authorities and community advocates trying to respond to super complicated challenge that the whole world is facing. I think we could learn a lot. And I think maybe the property tech and access control providers could stand to learn a lot from this situation. Sort of take advantage of the delta between security oriented and what we might consider to be more of a care oriented situation. Think about how we're responding to the health emergency. We're doing it through masks and testing, isolating, contact tracing. These are all tactics of mitigation and suppression. They come from frameworks oriented around care, which is not the same as frameworks of control. And that's huge. Can the technology that we've created for systems of control work in that space? I think so, right? It's kind of a mindset of how we continue to do the work. And it's about increasing your awareness of who's involved and the kind of group effects and all that. But it becomes about, it's sort of new conversations about maintenance, sustainability, and just compassion for the experience of individuals and groups, as Brigitte mentioned before. And just to piggyback on what Amit said before, also, wouldn't the promise of smart access be well suited for this, right? The promise of the extensibility. What else can we do with this data? Doesn't smart access lend itself to be a really obvious partner for here? And we've got lots of examples of mechanical integrations and collaborations. We've got lots of examples of cooperation with human systems like HR services or police authorities. So it seems like it could be there. And with respect to permission, it's just about recognizing who makes up that social ecosystem, as Brigitte mentioned, and seeing if you can pull up a seat at the table instead of packaging a box that's going to solve all the problems.
Well said. Amit, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have a bit of a downer here. My view and our fund's view is that the pandemic is going to be with us for a while. as in until there's a vaccine or true herd immunity. And for true herd immunity, you need at least 70% of the people have been exposed. Either one of those is at least a year away. You can look at plenty of studies. We're not getting out of this mess at least for a year, barring some unforeseen breakthrough. Which means that the situation we have in right now, to the point that both Brigitte and Jonathan made, there's a need for access control. There's a recognition. There was always a need. Now there's a recognition, right? Like I actually in my personal life go and think, okay, I'm going to go and pick up food from this restaurant. How will I do that operation? I have to go and drop off my wife at the hospital because she's a doctor. How will I actually navigate that? Like I have to think about all of these different access controls that I never actually thought of in pre-COVID times.
Right.
Some of this is going to stay with us. Not all of this is going to be around post-pandemic, but some of it will. And the biggest data point I have is hospitals. Hospitals do need to screen for people, do need to figure out who goes in what room and when at what time. And historically, medicine has been very averse to adopting technology. For good reasons. Now they're being forced to. So this is an openness, and a lot of secular trends in healthcare have been occurring, but the pandemic has accelerated them. It's an openness to accepting technologies. So even if you were to build access control just for the medical system, which is about 5,000 hospitals and 6,000 clinics and another 20,000 points of care, plus about 10 million people who are involved directly in healthcare and 320 million Americans at least who are patients, that in itself is a huge amount of opportunity. And a lot of it, I believe, will be with us post-pandemic. So I don't think it's a question of so much, does the industry have permission? It's the question is, we should be actually helping as much as we can in these times.
Yeah, and the question was purposely done in order to drive some of this stuff, because my belief is, like you said, the mainstream aspect of this and being thrust into it, the industry of access control is an industry of people for all the right reasons. It's sort of like, who needs a hammer? I've got a hammer, and we love selling hammers and installing hammers, and I think we're seeing that sort of uptick in adoption in things that haven't necessarily been thought all the way through, with the purpose of majority of the people for good reasons of trying to help. I do believe that. I do think though that you'll see it get back to not normal, because I think there's a new watermark that will be created, but it'll be somewhere different than the sort of rush that you see of technology that goes here. And I do think it will accelerate, because one of the things that have set back the industry for so long, because we haven't really seen a lot of smart access. We've seen connected. We went from motorized to connected, and I don't think we've seen much smart. I think we're going to start to see a lot more of that now. And it's because historically the products have been built for 30 years to sit and, and to protect in that way. And really, unless something bad happened, you didn't really change much, to where now.
But Lee, you mean smart, we're going to start seeing smart, meaning in the way of the products, like some smart, like an actual smart product, or smart access in what you, Jonathan, and I have been talking about?
I think the answer is both is yes, because I think you're going to need to see new products introduced that will support the new use cases and stakeholders. If you think about it on access control, historically, it's all been about the admin and the integrator. Now we have end users that we have to deal with on a regular basis, right? And that's a new stakeholder that brings an entire new use case that a lot of the products were never built off of. Or to support, right? So now I think we'll start to see that, which is really exciting for both incumbents and new people into the industry itself. So let me jump to the third question, which leads us to, if we were to say that it's now becoming mainstream, that means that it before wasn't necessarily mainstream, right? So we believe there's going to be a growth of smart access, like we just talked about. Why do you believe we haven't seen it so far? And what does good look like, if you would, once we start to see it? So John, why don't you take that one first? Sure.
I'll go quick, because I think Brigitte and Amit can probably speak more to the specifics of the market. But two things jump out. One, sort of in response to what you just said, Lee, I think a really important part is the sort of product development, or the culture of the technology, switching to a sense of like the credential holders or visitors, sort of the anonymous credential holders, not they've never really been users, as you just said. The emphasis of a user is actually really on, you know, who buys the equipment and who administers it. But then everyone else is really subjected to the technology. They're subjects, they're data subjects, they're subjects to the technology. When we're thinking about these sort of more holistic notions of people having relationships throughout and among the technology, doesn't it feel uncomfortable to refer to everybody as the subjects of that? You wouldn't want to be the subject of an experiment or a subject of control, like a mouse in a maze. So I think there's some kind of pivot there to really appreciate what's at stake for the credential holders and those folks in the ecosystem that's created and supported by the technology. The other thing that I had just had in the back of my mind was, I feel like there's maybe some takeaways from the mega scale of smart access, smart cities, and I think folks could spend some time with the effort the Alphabet Sidewalk Labs did up in Toronto and the now canceled Quayside project, and just how did that happen? Why did it come apart? And there's some threads there about public trust. That's sort of too messy to get into right now, but it finally collapsed when a judge found that the process for that project entering into the environment skipped over a lot of ideas and sort of expectations, norms that the community had already enshrined in its regulations and laws. And I know that feeling of running, as a recovering architect, I know that feeling of running into ordinances and regulations and zoning and, you know, sort of people, the kind of adversarial positioning that all of that context sometimes can be. But I just wonder, like, is it too hard to imagine bringing all of those instead as parameters and allies? And if it is too hard to imagine or too unlikely to imagine, maybe we have to step back and ask why. And I think looking at that mega scale is important because, as Amit said, this is the current situation is going to be with us for a long time. I totally agree with that. And when we look at the news, it looks like every locality is sort of experiencing this in a different way. And so, I don't know, being really mindful of those contexts and how to operate as a partner in those contexts, as Brigitte said at the beginning of this, is going to be really, really, really important.
I agree. Amit, what are your thoughts?
I was going back to my pre-med days. So the reason it has been adopted, for those who are fans of chemistry, think about a chemical reaction. You need some activation energy that requires more energy for the reaction to happen before you end up at a different state. And that different state is better than the initial state, but you need to input energy. You need to overcome some kind of barrier in order to get to that other state. What the pandemic has done is has shaken this up, right? Like, we have provided the activation energy. So previously, the excuses were, oh, this is going to take too much time to install. This is going to take too much money to install. Oh, I don't know if the benefit is there. Yeah, no, I see that this is more efficient, but, you know, do I really need it? Like, all of those questions now, there's responses for them. You can not afford to implement them. Some of this mentality will stay after the pandemic. So this is an acceleration. It's a huge acceleration. It's the same acceleration that we as investors are seeing in telehealth, right? Telehealth was getting adopted. It's just accelerated hugely. It's the same thing we're seeing in food automation, right? Like using robots to produce all kinds of things, whether it's on the farm or in a greenhouse or even in people's homes, right? That has been accelerated. So we went through this journey, Lee and you, and I went through the journey at Unikey, where we would tell consumers, hey, this is better for you. You can allow different people to come into your house. You can get analytics in it. You can improve safety. You can put this in your business. You can put this in your hotel. You can put this in your car. You can put this in your cruise ship. It's just better. But it wasn't 10x better. And now, given the pandemic, that ROI is now justified. So I'm bullish that this is a moment that allows for technologies that made sense, but the activation energy was too high previously.
I love it. All right, Brigitte, real quick on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as the integrator, it's like, you said, Lee, this was such a product-driven market. It was a hammer, a key fob, or, we're no longer in that type of access control system. It's now in clouds and platforms and software-based. And so I think that was another reason why it was very hard to be adopted right now, because it's been so heavy physical, and now it's so more digital. And heavy physical means that we had to interact with the real estate industry to basically let them see that this is an investment that they need to make for their buildings, or even for people to want to have it in their home. And if you're dealing on the commercial side of the business, real estate is very, not diverse, right? Even in the people that run the properties, that, own the buildings. And if you're talking about that component of just why people haven't adopted it, a lot of it's going to be around cost for a building owner to put it in their, their building, or even for them to think that this might be something that a homeowner or a resident would like to have. But I definitely think the mobile, like we've all said, the mobile phone, the credential of using something that you already use in your home and now use for all your spaces, is going to drive the acceleration. I think that's the kind of the point of democratization, is the phone. Just like the cable box was democratization for the internet, and just having internet come into your home, that is the new method of how you're automating where you are and how you enter. So for me, I think the industry is changing. The mobile phone is driving. COVID, absolutely an accelerant for just use of your phone, use of technology, because we have to. Telemedicine, distance learning, remote work, getting your food, getting anything that you need because we had to be at home, is accelerating why we need smart technology. And even for people that probably didn't think they needed it or it wasn't for them, now get it. Now they can afford it. The prices come down, and I think it will continue to come down. It's going to be more affordable, and probably that will make the adoption swing. But I definitely think if we don't start having technologies that are addressing the communities, particularly in urban areas, of people that are really using the mobile phone and want to be more involved in smart homes, I think that's a missing opportunity, or at least a missed opportunity. And I only see access control being the glue that now is going to start driving smart home, smart building, automation around just what it looks like to want to have this technology in your pocket, or even something that you pay for in your home or your building or your office, or even something that you want to make sure can attract the kind of tenant that will be, that key of user experience that you're going to provide.
Wonderful. Well, I know we've run out of time, so thank you. Well said, Brigitte. Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Brigitte. I appreciate Igloo Home putting this on for us to do this. I think you all delivered on a different conversation than we've historically had around this. So I think it's just the beginning of a much longer conversation that needs to happen, of community and inclusion and everything you talked about. I loved. We even brought chemistry into access control, which is new, but the whole idea around care versus control and the rest of it. So all of you touched on a lot of key points. So thank you for taking the time. Thank you, the audience, for participating and listening. And I look forward to seeing the three of you at some point real soon in person. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.